What's up guys, Game Wisdom Gaming here and welcome back to the wise side of YouTube. If you are a long-time viewer, you already know that I have fallen in love with the world that Toby Fox created. And a big reason as to why is that I can always come back and theorize about it. And today I'll be doing just that. As I have a theory I think you will find very interesting. A theory that will make you see Deltarune in a completely different way. And a theory that will make the wait for Chapter 3 a little more tolerable. This theory will explain the connection between Undertale and Deltarune, uncover the identity of the knight, and explain what the heck any of this has to do with Gaster. So grab a snack, take a sit and buckle up, cause there's no coming back now. Before we start, I'd like to mention that this video will have two different theories on it. The first one will talk about the Gaster related stuff I mentioned earlier. And the second one will be a much more speculative theory, where I'll try to predict Deltarune's story moving forward. As always, I have left timestamps below the video to help you navigate between the two theories and their segments. Enjoy! In Undertale we learn bits and pieces of Gaster's story but nothing conclusive. Even with as little information as we have about Gaster, we can still reach a somewhat reasonable conclusion to his story by putting together the clues given to us by the games. Moving forward, I will assume that you already know who Gaster is and why he is so important to this story. If you don't, I have already made 2 videos where I explain Gaster in depth. Or you could check out one of the hundreds of videos made on the subject. In Undertale we learned that Gaster was shattered across time and space when one of his experiments went horribly wrong. A lot of people assume that this final experiment involved the core since his downfall is mentioned right after the comment about Gaster making the core. But I don't think that's the case, as entry number 17 gives us a few clues on what the experiment was, and it's definitely not core related. Entry number 17, also known as Room 264, is a document written in all caps wingdings that can be found by meshing with the game's room values. That when translated into actual readable words reads as follows.
Entry number 17. Dark. Darker. Yet darker. The darkness keeps growing. The shadows cutting deeper. Photon readings negative. This experiment seems very interesting.
Well, alright then. Just by reading this we can get a good look at Gaster's experiment. Look at how he describes it. Darker yet darker. The darkness keeps growing. The shadows cutting deeper. Sounds familiar. Gaster is clearly describing the opening of a dark fountain. To me this confirms that Gaster created a dark world.
But why would creating a dark world shatter Gaster across time and space?
I was getting to that.
Oh, okay.
The reason for why opening a dark fountain would shatter Gaster comes from something that Queen says in the climax of Chapter 2. This power of the will, this power of determination. Is this not something that all Lightners possess? If one was simply determined enough, could not anyone make a dark fountain? To me this monologue is the smoking gun for Gaster's shattering. Gaster was, as Queen puts it, not determined enough, and the process of opening the fountain shattered him into pieces across the different dark worlds. And these pieces are the shadow crystals that we get from the secret bosses. And it's my theory that the entire game of Deltarune is Gaster's convoluted plan to piece himself back together. And I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, so let me explain. After being shattered across time and space, Gaster, being the unyielding spirit that he is, would not give up, and would instead plan his return. But to do that he would need the player's help. We see the first part of Gaster's plan during the epilogue of the genocide route, in a scene that only happens if you wait for around 10 minutes, when Kara asks you to erase the world. Then a mysterious voice proposes a deal. You give them your soul, and they erase everything that happened so you can keep playing without consequences. But what if I told you that this voice is actually Gaster?
Who is that? This is the end of the mystery. Well, if it isn't our old friend
W.D. Gaster.
Why would Gaster need a human soul, you may ask? Well, in order to be whole again, Gaster would need someone to find his scattered pieces. someone filled with determination, someone powered by a human soul. Now I am going to go through and narrate Gaster's plan in its entirety and do the explaining afterwards. Here we go. After being shattered across time and space, Gaster used his excellent bargaining skills to obtain a human soul, which he would use to make a vessel determined enough to open dark fountains and obtain the pieces of Gaster. But there was something that Gaster hadn't accounted for. The roaring? Gaster realized that he would need two vessels, one to open the fountains and find the shadow crystals, and one to seal the fountains to prevent the roaring from happening. So he did what any reasonable person would do at that moment, and started tweeting weird things to get our attention. Then he used the player's capable hands to create the vessel that would allow him to put his plan into motion. And then he used the soul he obtained as a way to connect the player to this world via Chris, the character we play as in Deltarune. What I just described must have been quite confusing, so here are the important things you should know about the Gaster Theory trademark. The vessel you create at the start of the game is the Roaring Knight, and Gaster is a puppet master of sorts, orchestrating the events of the game from behind the scenes. That being said, I don't actually think Gaster's plan is going to succeed because I have a suspicion that Chris might cause some chaos trying to get their freedom back. Welcome, this is the Intermission Lounge, the place where we take a break in between the two theories this video contains. If you managed to make it this far into the video, congratulations! You survived my rambling for the past 6 minutes. And if you have watched this far into the video, it means you like my content, so consider subscribing to the channel for more awesome videos like this one. Now that we got all the YouTube algorithm stuff out of the way, it's time to get back into the theories and uncover Deltarune's plot and every chapter coming forward. Ready? Here we go. First up is Chapter 3, obviously, which is going to be the shortest part of this video. Since everything about it has already been said, do you really need me to tell you that it's going to be TV themed and that it may or may not include some guy named Mike? Basically, I, like most people, think it's going to be taking place in a TV world where we will explore many areas themed around different shows. Some of my top predictions include a cooking show themed area, a segment or area based on a quiz show, and even a true crime series style area. I am not sure whether or not Mike will be in Chapter 3. I don't believe that just because Spamton references someone named Mike. We should take that as 100% confirmation that he is the main antagonist of Chapter 3. Lastly, I think Chapter 3 will be a Dark World-focused chapter, and it will not have a Light World segment, or if it does, it's going to be shorter than usual. Next up is Chapter 4, which is going to have the Light World section first and the Dark World section later. I believe it's going to have a Chris and Susie enjoy themselves in the Light World and slowly make their way to the Dark World. As for what the Dark World will be, I believe it's going to be church-themed, as Rudy references going to the church the next day in the epilogue of Chapter 2. I believe Noel will be a central character of these chapters, as well as the ones after it. I also think that Rudy might accompany the main party in the Dark World. Speaking of Rudy, I don't think he is going to make it to the end of the game, as he is most likely going to pass away from his sickness. As to when this is going to happen, I believe the end of Chapter 4 is the most likely answer, as it would be a perfect opportunity to have Noel deal her father's death during Chapter 5, which I am certain will be Noel-focused. Chapter 5 is where things start to get harder to predict, but I have a few guesses as to what is going to happen. I believe this chapter's Dark World will take place in the Holiday family's home, going through Noel's memories as Susie and Chris try to calm her down. This will be a great opportunity to have us learn more about Noel's mom, who has been suspiciously absent up to this point. We might even get some info on Des, Noel's older sister, who has gone missing. I also think that Chapter 5 will be when we'll get to have our epic confrontation with the Knight, and will end with the main gang exiting the Dark World just to see that the roaring is happening. I believe that Chapters 6 and 7 will be a two-part finale focusing on saving the world from the roaring. Also, I think Chris will finally have enough, and will try to get rid of us for good. And we'll be forced to take control of the vessel from the start of the game, and go through the different Dark Worlds from the previous chapters, chasing Chris down. I wouldn't be surprised if we had to fight corrupted versions of the main antagonists from all the previous chapters, reminiscent of the Asriel fight for Undertale. Noelle will definitely go through a lot of development, finally coming to terms with Rudy's passing, and maybe even stand up to her mother. Then the game will reach its absolute climax with an epic final battle against the Titans. I believe Deltarune will end with the Castletown fountain being sealed and the world being restored to its normal state, with most of the characters not being entirely sure what happened. I can imagine the game ending in a cutscene so everyone enjoy themselves at the festival that has been hinted at in Chapter 2. So what did you think of my predictions for Deltarune's story and the Gaster theory? Did you enjoy them? I'll be more than happy to read your thoughts in the comments below. As for me, I never thought that this project would end up as big as it did when I started working on it more than 6 months ago at this point, but here we are. This video contained almost everything I wanted to say about this game, but there's still a few things I could talk about, like the mysterious banker, the Eggman, or even the bottomless rabbit hole that is December holiday. But I'll leave those for another day. As for how accurate my theory is, I think it's probably going to be correct at some parts at least, but with Undertale's anniversary coming up in less than 2 months, and the fact that there are 2 newsletters left for this year, I believe we'll learn sooner rather than later. But for now, it's time to wrap up this video. I have been Game Wisdom Gaming, this was The Wise Side, and I'll see you in the next video.